Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to look at what you should eat and drink on the morning of your marathon. Now, there are loads of ways around this, and again, personal context has to be taken into consideration as always. So your own personal preferences, what you would normally eat and drink, and also how you feel on race morning is, big factor. So I generally feel quite nervous on marathon race morning. I look forward to it, but never to this apprehension around kind of the getting to the start line on time, making sure you're ready. So I don't eat a huge breakfast. I do have a slightly bigger breakfast than normal. So I'd have 60 grams of porridge oats instead of 40. I would have 100 grams of berries instead of 80, and I'd put a little bit of honey into the breakfast as well. So this isn't huge, but what I will then do is I will graze throughout the morning as well. So I will eat up to 1 hour before the race time, which is perfectly viable, and I'll have something like a bagel with some jam around about an hour beforehand. I might have a flapjack or something along those kind of lines as well. This is within the range of what's normal as well. So the recommendations are quite vague, but it's 1 to 4 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram body weight in the 1 to 4 hour period before your race. Now, this allows for starchy carbohydrates to be digested and be into the body really, really nicely at this point. So actually works out really well from a scientific point of view. However, it's quite a wide range. There's no way in hell that I could eat around 62 kilos roughly. I generally sit before a race day. I would not be able to eat nearly 250 grams of carbohydrate a few hours before a marathon. There is no way. Also depends on what you've done with your carb load. Now, I carb load heavily. I really go at this. I go at the top end, around about 11 to 12 grams per kilogram body weight in those 2 days before a race. So if you're not carb loading, you do need to eat a slightly bigger breakfast or certainly more carbohydrate in the hours before your race day. I would say an hour cut-off point is probably quite a good period of time. Gives you enough time just to get something light in, doesn't need to be much. Some rice cakes or something can work really well. And again, I've done that as well. Fluid wise, you want to be careful of what you're doing here. Now, this is also going to depend on your frequency, your colour, and volume of urine. That is your best gauge for how well hydrated you are. If you've done a big carb load, it's very easy to become dehydrated because we need that water to be absorbed with the carbohydrate. If you've gone pretty high salt, which is again really easily done during a carb load, then again you're maybe going to be having a different salt and fluid balance than normally and might not have hydrated as well as you think. So pay attention to volume, colour and frequency of your urine output and make sure you're drinking plenty there. I would generally have again about 500 to 750 millilitres of water, of squash in preparation for the marathon. What can be really easy is to have a carbohydrate drink, so something like a Lucozade, or if you're using a sport-specific drink during your marathon, have some of that in the build-up. You get great carbs in, you're going to probably get some electrolytes in there as well for most of these, and it's getting you some fluid in as well. So it can be a great way to really hydrate very, very nicely before your race day. What I would limit is probably caffeine. Now, whether you've done a big carb load or not, whether you're very used to caffeine or not, there is that irritation of the stomach and bladder that can come with it. So caffeine being a diuretic will irritate the bladder and make you need to pee more likely. And also, obviously, it can have an impact on your bowel movements as well. If you're very, very used to caffeine, then you can have a small amount, but I wouldn't have more than maybe 1 cup of coffee or tea in the morning. I would probably have that fairly early on rather than nearer to the race start, especially if you're taking on drinks with caffeine or any sort of caffeinated gels during your race as well. So you want to have 1 to 4 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight in the 1 to 4 hours beforehand, and probably something around about 500 to 750 milliliters of fluid, depending on how you tolerate liquids and how well hydrated you are. That's what you need to do on marathon race morning, and you'll be ready to race as well as possible.